All right. 1 Samuel chapter 30. I'm going to read almost the whole portion of this chapter. So if you've been standing too long, you need to sit down and understand. But listen to what God's word says to us on this morning. Now, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, the Amalekites had made a raid against Negeb and against Ziklag. They had overcome Ziklag and burned it with fire, and taken captive the women and all who were in it, both small and great. They killed no one, but carried them off and went their way. Oh, I hope I can get to that. And when David and his men came to the city, they found it burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and daughters taken captive. Then David and the people who were with him raised their voices and wept until they had no more strength to weep. David's two wives also had been taken captive, and Ahoam and Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in soul, each for his sons and daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. Some of you know that as David encouraged himself in the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. So Abiathar brought the ephod to David, and David inquired of the Lord, shall I pursue after this band? Shall I overtake them? God answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and shall surely rescue. I love how the King James Version says this. It says, pursue, for you shall surely overtake him, and without fail recover all. Turn to your neighbor and say, recover all. Yeah. Come on, turn to another neighbor and say, recover all. Tell them, say, you can recover. Tell them, you can recover. 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 Yeah. You can recover. You can recover all. So David set out, and the 600 men who were with him, and they came to the brook of Besor, where those who were left behind stayed. But David pursued. He and 400 men, 200 stayed behind who were too exhausted to cross the brook Besor. They found an Egyptian in the open country and brought him to David, and they gave him bread and he ate. They gave him water to drink, and they gave him a piece of cake of figs and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit revived, for he had not eaten bread or drunk water for 3 days and 3 nights. And David said to him, to whom do you belong? And where are you from? He said, I'm a young man of Egypt, servant to the Amalekite, and my master left me behind because I fell sick 3 days ago. We had made a raid against the Negeb of the Cherethites, and against that which belongs to Judah, and against the Negeb of Caleb. And we burned Ziklag with fire. David said to him, will you take me down to this band? And he said, swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master, and I will take you down to this band. And when he had taken him down, behold, they were spread abroad over all the land. They were eating and drinking and dancing because of all the great spoil they had taken from the land of the Philistines and from the land of Judah. And David struck them down from twilight until evening of the next day, from sunup to sundown for 2 days. And not a man of them escaped except for 400 young men who mounted camels and fled. Listen, y'all, David recovered all that the Amalekites had taken, and David rescued his 2 wives. Nothing was missing. Woo! Whether small or great, sons or daughters, spoil or anything that had been taken, David brought back all. David also captured all the flocks and herds, and the people drove the livestock before him, and they said, this is David's spoil. Then David came to the 200 men who had been too exhausted to follow David and who had been left at the brook of Besor. And they went out to meet David and to meet the people who were with him. And when David came near to the people, he greeted them. But then all the wicked and worthless fellows among the men who had gone with David said, because they did not go with us, we will not give them any of the spoil that we have recovered. except that each man may lead away his wife and children and depart. But David said, you shall not do so, my brothers, with what the Lord has given us. He has preserved us and given into our hand the band that came against us. Who would listen to you in this matter? For as his share is who goes down into the battle, so shall his share be who stays by the baggage. They shall share alike. And he made it a statute and a rule for Israel from that day forward to this day. The word of the Lord is blessed. Amen. You may be seated. Oh, Father, if you'll help us, I believe that he's going to speak to us on this morning. I would like to title our sermon from this passage this morning, One Difficult Dilemma. One Difficult Dilemma. I wonder how many of you have ever had that dreaded dilemma where your computer crashes and frantically you keep trying over and over and over to reboot it, press Control Alt Delete to try to restart it. And after attempt after attempt, you keep seeing that dreaded spinning wheel. It's not a dilemma many people run into today. Maybe that's why not many of you said anything to me, because just about everything is backed up on the cloud these days, right? But I'm going to run the risk of sounding old. But back in the day, all of our precious files and documents and data and photos, they would be stored on our hard drive. And so there were occasions when our computer would crash and we would be desperate to recover those files, desperate to recover that data, desperate. Lady Key, I think close to 15 years ago, I lost some photos, and she still wishes I could recover those photos that crashed on a computer. It's a difficult dilemma because you hate to lose all of that information, all of that precious information, all of those precious memories. I remember having this dilemma one time, and I contacted customer service to try to see if there was anything that they could do to help me. And they began to walk me through the steps to put in the computer of something called recovery mode. Anybody ever heard of recovery mode? They explained to me that recovery mode is the functionality where a computer basically operates at just the bare minimum of its functionality, so that you can try to salvage, even repair the computer or recover the data and the documents and everything that's on the computer to try to transfer it to another drive. And I remember this one occasion, I could have reached through the phone and kissed the person who was on the other side of the phone, because they were able to walk me through the steps to, in recovery mode, help me to recover all the files that I thought that I was about to lose. They were able to help me to transfer those files and recover those files that I thought were gone to another drive. And I was able to save what I thought I had lost. I wonder how many people here today wish we had a recovery mode in life. That when you've been met with stuff that seem to shut you down, crash your system, knock you flat on your back, you wish that you could go into recovery mode to at least be able to salvage what's left and even to recover what you think was lost. In this situation that we read with David and his band of men, they are coming back to their home base in Ziklag. And it's almost as if when they come back and they see all of the devastation and they don't see their family that has been taken, their whole town has been burned, it's almost as if David gets to go into recovery mode. David and his men, they have come back as a result of being rejected to go to war with someone else. And when they went to try to go to war with someone else, it was the Amalekites that took advantage of their vulnerability in their hometown, and they came and burned up their whole town and took all their stuff, their women, their children, everything. Matter of fact, what was interesting is that this wasn't the first dilemma David had ever stumbled across. this actually was one of the last dilemmas David would face before he would be appointed king over Israel. What's interesting is that David is anointed king all the way back in chapter 18 and 19. It's in chapter 17 where Samuel goes and he anoints David. And he tells David he's going to be king over Israel. He's been anointed king in chapter 17. Now he's in chapter 30 and he's still not king. And if you don't know how David got to the place where he's had all these years since he's been anointed and he hasn't been appointed king, it was because David went to war and he defeated this guy named Goliath. He was an uncircumcised Philistine. He was a Philistine. He was the one that was Israel's enemy. And David, when he defeated Goliath, not only did he defeat Goliath, but people found out that he was a man of war. And he went to war and he started killing other folks. And he was so powerful that at the time when he came back from war, they sang this song for David when he came back from war. They would say, Saul has killed his thousands, but David has killed his tens of thousands. Yeah. And so Saul got mad with David. He got jealous with David. And David is literally on the run from basically chapter 18 to chapter 30. He's on the run because Saul is trying to kill him. And as he's on the run, he finds safety with the Philistines. That's Israel's enemies. Y'all, he finds safety in the midst of who once were his enemies. It makes no sense, but here it is that the Philistines, they were actually about to go to war against Israel again. And so David has been on the run. He's been on hideout. He's been trying to keep low because every chance Saul gets to try to kill David, he's trying to kill David. And so David he's got this safe haven among the Philistines. And so the Philistines are about to go back to war against Israel. And David's like, well, I'm going to go to war with y'all because y'all been taking care of me. I'm going to go to war against my people, my clansfolk. And one of the Philistines generals was like, wait a minute. We don't know if that's a good plan. Because, David, you might decide to go to war with us against Israel. And you remember, those are your family. And you'll turn on us. And so they said, nah, we're going to handle this war by ourselves. And so it was when he had gone to try to help them that the Amalekites came and burned Ziklag. They are coming back after having been rejected to try to help their enemies. And they come back and they are rejected. It has taken them 3 days to get back. And it's understood that that was probably a 25-mile journey. And when they get back, not only have they been rejected, but they are exhausted. They're so exhausted that I don't know if you heard it, but 200 couldn't even go with them any further because they were so tired. So they are dejected. They are exhausted. And then they get back home expecting to be welcomed with, hey, honey, glad you're home. I know some men, we don't get that either. They come back hoping to receive, so glad you're home. And they see everything has been burned up. And they know that their wives and their children are not dead because they don't see them in Ziklag. Had they killed them, they would have still been in Ziklag. So they know that they're still alive. And they are a mess. It says in verse number 4, when David and the people who were with him, they raised their voices and they wept until they had no more strength to weep. They are understandably overwhelmed with sadness and grief and rage. Like, not only are they probably hungry and tired, hangry, they're dealing with rejection. And they have to come back home to this devastation. And what they decide to do is, after they have no more strength to weep, they are deciding to turn against David to try to blame David for the mess that they're in. And so they are about to stone to kill David. This is so crazy, y'all, because if you know anything about these men that are around him, they were misfits. They were outcasts. Yeah. It's like they're turning against the person who helped them out of their difficult situation. They're turning to the person who, when they had nothing, he decided to, listen, he did not choose to be their leader. They chose him to be their leader. Turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 22. I want you to hear what happened. So when David is early on in escaping and running on the run from Saul, he comes to this cave of Adullam. Chapter 22, verse 1 says, and when his brothers and fathers in his house heard it, they went down there to him too. And then everyone who was in distress, everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul, another way of translating that is discontented, they gathered to David, and he became the commander over them. Y'all, he didn't ask to be their leader, and they are misfits. They're in debt. They're discontented. They ain't got nothing for, and now, after David has been leading them and doing a valiant job leading them. He's been leading them into wars, and they've been winning, and they've been having all these victories. Now they want to turn against David. Anybody know people will turn on you real quick? You can do a whole lot for them, but when it comes to those crunch times, they'll turn on you real quick. And some of y'all are the ones who have turned on people. So we need to be careful of how quickly we try to throw people away. How quickly we turn on folks. How quickly we try to throw them away, and how quickly we might try to throw stones at them. Even in our moments of distress, we need to be careful of how we treat people. Because sometimes our emotions can get the best of us. And we end up turning on somebody who actually has been with us all the time, helping us all along the way. And yeah, maybe this latest decision may not be great, but guess what? They've been there and they've been helping you through difficulty. Be careful about turning on people. Be careful about throwing people away. Listen, they come back. And they are trying to stone David because of what has happened. And it says that David was distressed, greatly distressed. But it says David strengthened himself in the Lord. Listen, David is in a difficult dilemma. Matter of fact, he's been in this dilemma, this difficulty, not just this one time. But it seems like it's been one difficult dilemma after another. On the third Sunday of May 2021, Pastor Tanya Williams, on her first Sunday serving with us, started a series called It's Your Season. Anybody remember that? It was on the third Sunday of May 2021 that she started this series on This Is Your Season. And she led us through the life of David in the different seasons of his life, to try to help us to learn what we need to know about the different seasons of our lives. We're going to have seasons of preparation. We're going to have seasons of difficulty. We're going to have seasons of promise. But we need to know whatever season we're in, it's our season. And it's the season that God has put us in for a reason. And she didn't have time to really dig into this difficult dilemma that we see here with David. But she did talk about the difficult season. And I believe the series was 6 parts. And she had to spend 2 Sundays on the difficult season, even though she spent 1 Sunday on all the other seasons. Because sometimes, anybody know that it seems like your difficult season lasts longer than any other season that you go through. David has had one difficult dilemma after another. It seems like that difficult season is never going to end. But as this difficult season is about to come to a close, God puts David in recovery mode. And the first thing that David does in recovery mode is he strengthens himself in the Lord. If you want to try to recover what has been lost in your life, you need to go into recovery mode, and the first thing you need to learn to do is to strengthen yourself in the Lord. Oh, I wish I had somebody praying for me. You've got to learn how to strengthen yourself in the Lord. See, David, we don't really know from this passage what strengthening himself in the Lord entailed. But there's another place in Samuel where we see this word strengthening in the Lord. It's actually over in 1 Samuel chapter 23. 1 Samuel chapter 23. I'm going to read it to you because I don't hear anybody turning. But verse number 14, it says that Saul sought David every day. But God did not give David into Saul's hand. Verse 15 says, David saw that Saul had come out to seek his life. David was in the wilderness of Ziph at Horish. And Jonathan, Saul's son, rose and went to David at Horish. Hear this. And strengthened his hand in the Lord. This is where we see this happening before. And listen to how Jonathan strengthens David in the Lord. He said to David, do not fear, for the hand of Saul my father shall not find you. You shall be king over Israel, and I shall be next to you. Saul my father also knows this. Here it is that Jonathan reminds David of the promises of God over his life. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When David was afraid and fearful and thought he was about to lose his life, here comes his friend Jonathan to say to him, don't forget, you have been anointed king. God's hand is on your life. And even though you're going through tough things right now, don't let these circumstances make you doubt God's promises over your life. What we understand David was doing in chapter 30 when he strengthened himself in the Lord is that he was reminding himself of the promises of God even when the circumstances did not seem to look like what God had promised him. If you are going to get through recovery mode, you have to learn to strengthen yourself in the Lord by reminding yourself of God's promises that have been spoken over your life. Listen, y'all. David was in a situation that almost did not make sense. He did not ask to be anointed king. He was minding his business, shepherding the sheep. Even when Samuel came to anoint who would be next over Israel, the next king over Israel, he was out shepherding with the sheep. They didn't even remember until Samuel said, wait a minute, this oil ain't flowing. Do you have anybody else? He was forgotten about, and he was fine taking care of the sheep. Yeah, he had to deal with some lions and some bears and some tigers, oh my. But he was fine taking care of the sheep, y'all. He did not ask to be anointed to be king. He did not ask for then, after being anointed to be king for years, almost 16 years, waiting to be appointed as king. He did not ask for Saul to try to kill him. He didn't ask for these misfits to try to follow him. He didn't ask for any of this. This is what God put on his life. And in that moment, he had to wrestle in the tension of, what I'm seeing right now is not what God promised me. What I'm experiencing right now, it does not make sense based on the promises of God. Anybody ever been in that place where you're trying to figure out, God, if you've got these promises for me, why am I in this space right now? And you've got to make sure that you don't let difficulties make you forget, question, or doubt the promises of God. You've got to learn to stay encouraged. Turn to your neighbor and say, stay encouraged. See, some of you, I don't know how you make it through life because you ain't got nothing to encourage yourself. You're not even in a relationship with a God who wants to help you through difficult situations. And I encourage you to get into a relationship with him because he'll help you in those moments. You've got to learn how to stay encouraged. You know, this is what God told Joshua. He tells Joshua to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. Because he knew that Joshua was going to hit some moments where he's going to see things that he's going to want to tuck his tail in between his legs and go home and say, God, I don't want to lead your people anymore. But he says, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged because I am with you wherever you go. You need to keep that promise in your back pocket because there's going to become moments where you're going to need to be strong and courageous. I think about what Paul says to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 1. He says to him, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God. King James Version says to stir up the gift which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God gave us a spirit not of fear. Listen, you're going to face moments where you're going to feel like you want to succumb to fear, but God has not given you a spirit of fear. And you've got to learn to pull this passage out to encourage yourself. He has given you the spirit of power, of love, and of self-control, a sound mind. You've got to learn to lean on the promises of God. Because you're going to face moments where you're going to feel timid, you're going to feel scared, and you have to remember God's promises. Don't let your flame go out. That's what I believe Paul was trying to tell Timothy. Whatever you do, don't let that flame go. If you got to blow on that flame, if you got to put some gas on that flame, whatever you do, don't let it go out. And I want to encourage somebody, you got to find whatever you got to find so that you don't let your flame go out. Matter of fact, that's why some of us have gotten into dark places because we've let our flame go out and we have not been encouraging ourselves in the Lord. Don't let it go out. Romans 8 tells us this, that if God is for us, who can be against us? You need to make sure you got a promise. Here's one that I have been feasting on lately. I've been meditating on lately. Isaiah chapter 40. And I've been encouraging some other people with this one too. Isaiah chapter 41, verse 10. It says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. Here's what God says, I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Verse 13 says, for I, the Lord your God, hold your right hand. It is I who say to you, fear not. I am the one who helps you. Listen, God wants us to know we've got to learn to stay encouraged. Because you're going to face difficulties that are going to make you doubt the promises of God. So the first thing that he does in recovery mode is he encourages, he strengthens himself in the Lord. But the second thing that he does is he inquires of the Lord. Look at verse number 8. Let me start at verse 7. David said to Abiathar the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod. So Abiathar brought the ephod to David. It is the shawl that the priests wear when they're about to go to pray, to intercede. And it wasn't what David was supposed to put on because he's not the priest, but he needed something from the Lord. He was in a difficult dilemma, and he needed to hear from God himself. And sometimes you got to do whatever you got to do to hear from the Lord. So he puts on the ephod, and David, there it is in verse 8. Y'all see it? He inquired of the Lord. I wish y'all had your Bibles open so you can know that I'm not making this up and that his word will bring you life. David inquired of the Lord. He said, shall I pursue after this band? Shall I overtake them? See, you need in your difficult moment to ask the Lord what to do. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. Many of us, when we get in difficult dilemmas, we ask everybody but God. And we lean on our own understanding. But the passage says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Listen, in those difficult moments, if you're going to go into recovery mode where you can recover, you've got to make sure that you inquire of the Lord. David had a consistent prayer life. David, we know this because in the Psalms, he would say over and over again about how he sought the Lord and the Lord delivered him. Matter of fact, Psalm 34, we don't know that David wrote it when he was in this difficult situation, but listen to what Psalm 34 says. It says, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Y'all, he had made a decision that even in difficult times, he was going to bless the Lord. That even when people were trying to stone him, he was going to bless the Lord. That even when he had lost everything, he was going to bless the Lord. I don't know if y'all know that I'm preaching to you yet, but I hope that you need to make the decision that you're going to bless the Lord at all times. Even when people are accusing you and trying to stone you and trying to take you out, even when you've come back and you feel like you've lost everything, everybody is taking it, you have anything left, you need to make a decision. I'm going to bless the Lord at all times. My soul makes his boast in the Lord. Let the humble hear and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let us exalt his name together. Here it is, verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to God are radiant, and their faces shall never be ashamed. He says, this poor man cried, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. Listen, he was a man who was consistent in prayer, and he didn't just pray when things were bad. He would pray all the time, and you need to have a consistent prayer life, inquiring of the Lord. Don't let the first time you inquire of the Lord be when you hit yourself against rock bottom. In our prayer time on Friday morning at 5:30 a.m., somebody said, consistency looks like nothing until everything changes. Sometimes you can feel like you're praying and your prayers are just hitting the ceiling. But guess what? Continue to pray. Continue to pray. I think about Daniel. When Daniel was told that anybody who does not bow down to Nebuchadnezzar, that they were going to be thrown into the lion's pit, lion's den. And you know what Daniel did after he heard that decree? He went and prayed like he had done 3 times a day. Because it didn't matter what he was facing, he was going to be consistent in prayer. And that needs to be some of our examples, what we do, that it doesn't matter what I face, I'm going to be consistent in prayer, because consistency looks like nothing until everything changes. Don't allow circumstances around you to keep you from pursuing the God who is above you. Don't allow circumstances around you to keep you from pursuing the God who is above you. Colossians 3:1 says, if then you were raised with Christ, seek those things which are above. Set your minds on things above, not on the things of this earth. Some of us get distracted by what we see. And we're so busy about what we see that we never lift our eyes to the hills from which cometh our help. Let me move on. I feel like I'm boring you. The third thing that he does in recovery mode, first of all, he strengthens himself in the Lord. Second of all, he inquires of the Lord. But this third one, David obeyed the instruction given by the Lord. See, most of us might do the first two, but we stumble across the third one. He obeyed the instructions given by the Lord. Verse number 8b, God answered him, pursue, for you shall surely overtake. You shall surely rescue. And I love it, y'all. In the King James Version, it's without fail, you shall recover all. I want to encourage somebody today. You can recover.
Thank you, Lord.
I know it feels like it's too far gone. I know it feels like there's nothing left. I know it feels like you've lost everything. But this passage is an encouragement to us that it's not too far gone, that you can still recover from that thing that you thought was over. I love how it says that when they came to Ziklag, the Amalekites, they burned it with fire. And they took captive women and all who were in it, both small and great. Listen, they killed no one. Something you think is dead is not dead. And because you can't see the manifestation of it, you're acting as if it's dead. And it's not dead. You've just got to obey God's instructions to go recover that which you think might be dead. You can recover. You can recover it all. But we've got to obey the instructions given by the Lord. So what does David do in verse number 9? David set out. Somebody say he set out. That means he starts going in the direction to the Amalekites. And guess what? He doesn't really know where they are. He just starts going in the direction that he might think that they're in. And y'all, the 600 men who are with him, somehow or another, he got them to rally up with him to go back to the Amalekites to recover. Can you imagine what strength that took, what leadership that took of David? These are the same guys who were just trying to stone him in a few verses earlier. But David is so committed to obeying the instructions of the Lord. He said, listen, guys, we going back to take what the devil has stole from us. And somebody needs to make a decision. Listen, you're going to grab some people to go with you, and we're going back, and we're going to take everything that the enemy stole from us. We're going to recover it all. You can recover. I know it looks like you lost it all, but you can recover it. Go back and take what the enemy stole. Be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be timid. Don't be discouraged. Know that the Lord your God is with you. He's going to go with you. He's going ahead of you, and you can recover. You can recover. Listen, y'all, he was told to pursue when they felt defeated. He was told to pursue when they were distressed. He was told to pursue while they were still grieving. They didn't even have any strength left. He was told to pursue when they were still exhausted. The passage proves it to us because as they started going, 200 of them stayed behind because they was too tired. And most of us, we're waiting to obey God's instructions until all the conditions are ideal. And sometimes you've got to pursue and obey his instructions even when the situations and the conditions are not ideal. You might still be grieving. You might still be sad. You might still be stressed out. You might still be exhausted. But guess what? God says pursue anyway. Don't let your situation keep you from going to pursue and recover what the enemy has stolen. Too many of us, we are waiting on the temperature to be right. We're checking the wind to see which way it's blowing. We're checking and waiting for our bank account to be full. We're checking and waiting until somebody comes to us and apologizes. Listen, you're waiting on the wrong thing. If God has spoken, that settles it. Because his word will not return to you void. And here's the other thing. The reason why you got to obey his instructions is because you never know what's going to happen on the way. David did not know how he was going to recover and how he was going to overtake the Amalekites. But on the way, God put somebody in the way. On the way, God made them have this interruption that would be a divine interruption that would help them to win and recover. That's why you've got to start on the way. Do you remember those 10 lepers when they came to Jesus and they wanted to be healed of their leprosy? And Jesus says, you are healed. Go and show yourself to the priest. And you remember what the passage says? On the way, they got healed. They didn't get healed while they were still in Jesus' presence. They didn't get healed when they got to the place where they were supposed to go. They got healed on the way. The blind man who was blind from birth, Jesus told him to go to the sea and go to the water and wash your eyes. And guess what? After he did that, on the way back is when he got his healing. It's not when he got to the sea and washed his eyes. It wasn't when he got to Jesus. It was on the way. Somebody say on the way. The question is, are you going to start on the way? Or are you going to wait for everything to be right before you start on the way? See, God gives us instructions because he wants to help us, y'all. Sometimes you've got to pursue when it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you have to pursue when you don't feel like it. It may not feel like the season, but sometimes the Lord will have you pursue even when you feel like you're still in the midst of your difficulty. You're still in the midst of your stress. But God is saying, pursue. And so David obeyed the instructions given by the Lord. He runs into this Egyptian, and they see that this Egyptian wasn't doing well. They bring him back to David. David's like, let's feed him, y'all. He did not know that he was about to care back into health the guy who had been participated in the destruction of his town, but who also was going to participate in helping him to recover everything that had been lost. There's a passage in Hebrews that tells us, do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware. You got to be careful of how you treat people. One time, at some point, I think I want to preach this again. I want to preach it through this lens. How over and over again, it's how people are treated in these three movements of the text. How David is treated when they come back and everything is gone. How David treats this Egyptian, and then how David treats the people who stayed behind later and make sure that they get some of the spoil. Because you gotta be careful how you treat people, because you never know who's going to be the one to help you along the way. You never know who that person that you think they stink, they malnourished, you don't think that anything good can come from them. Just this morning, I literally was at the light and I took a note. And after I pulled off from the light, about a block down, I saw this guy running. Y'all know if he was running at 7:30 in the morning, it wasn't one of us, right? So I saw this guy running, and I waved at him because I knew who he was. And when he waved back, I don't think I didn't know whether or not he completely recognized me. And y'all, I'm running the church. I'm trying to finish getting this sermon together for y'all, and trying to make sure that we got the quiz and stuff together, and that didn't go well. So I don't like to be interrupted on Sunday mornings, y'all. Don't text me. Don't call me. Don't bother me, because I won't set mine. But something in me said, turn around. Are you so busy that you can't be interrupted by God to turn around? Wow. To check on someone? And what ended up happening was this brother was one of the parents at my oldest son's school, and he just started sharing me. He said, man, just this morning, I got an email. I should not have looked at my work email on a Sunday morning. That discouraged me. And I was able to encourage him in that moment when I was rushing to get to church to encourage y'all. And sometimes you need to know that God will give you divine interruptions. And you have no idea who God is going to use. So they run into this Egyptian, and this Egyptian is like, listen, y'all, I was with the folks that helped burn Ziklag. I don't even know if he knew that they were the folks whose town that was. But David says, will you take me down to this band? And he says, swear to me by God that you will not kill me or deliver me into the hands of my master. Listen, he knew that they probably should have killed him. He knew that based on what he did to them, he deserved to be killed by them. But they showed him mercy. They gave him bread, something to drink. They even gave that brother some dessert, y'all. They nursed him back to health. Be careful how you treat people. You never know what people are going through. All of us come in this room on Sunday morning carrying something. And you looking the other way, you give them that cold shoulder, and you have no idea that they could use an encouragement from you. Be careful how you treat people. But had David never been on the way, he would never have ran into this Egyptian man. Had he been delayed in going, the Egyptian man may have died before they got to him. You cannot delay. Don't put off obeying God's instructions. Listen, y'all. They finally, he listens to the instructions of the Lord, and he goes, and they stumble upon their enemies, and their enemies did not even expect it. Their enemies were singing and dancing and eating, having a good old time, drinking, just being merry. And here they do, they stumble upon them, and they overtake the enemies. It says in verse 18, David recovered all. David rescued. Nothing was missing. David brought back all. David also captured all. Verse 20, it ends by saying, this is David's spoil. Now, I know I said to you, I need another 5 minutes. I'm going to try to make it brief. But you got to get this right here. David went and recovered from the Amalekites. And this would be basically the last test David would have before he is appointed king. It's the same test that Saul went through and failed when God took his hand off of Saul. It was the Amalekites. God told Saul, when you go to the Amalekites, I'm going to help you win the war, but I want you to kill everything. Don't keep anything. And Saul kept some for himself. And here is what Samuel says to Saul. Obedience is better than sacrifice. See, God gave Saul different instructions than he gave David. And so you need to know what the instructions are for your life. But here it is, even when David recovered all, David realized it wasn't his. He says, the Lord has given us this. God has preserved us and given into our hand. Here it is. They're saying, David, all this is your stuff. David says, nah, this ain't my stuff. The Lord gave me this. I am not going to try to hoard what God gives me. And here's what I want some of us to know. That when God allows you to recover, don't hoard it for yourself. That is a word right there. Obey the instructions of God, but be generous with what God gives you. You think that your strength, your power, your might, your intellect, your intelligence, your degrees get you what you get. Guess what? If God had not breathed life into your lungs, you would not be able to do any of that stuff. So be generous with what God gives you. Those 400 men, they were like, nah, we're not giving nothing to them 200. They can get their wives and they can get their children. That's it. David says, no, that's not how we're going to live. David is showing us what biblical justice looks like. That when God is merciful to you, that you should be merciful to others. Woo! That when God forgives you, you should forgive others. That when God delivers you, you should go and help somebody. You don't keep it all to yourself, but you're able to be a blessing to somebody else. Woo. What we do once we recover is so important. David knew it wasn't his to keep. You need to know God is going to let you recover. In recovery mode, make sure you learn to strengthen yourself in the Lord. In recovery mode, make sure you inquire of the Lord. And in recovery mode, make sure that when he gives you instructions, you obey the voice of the Lord, y'all. Because he'll help you to recover all. I know it seems like you've lost everything. I know it feels like stuff is dead and you can't recover. But God, by his grace, can lead you into a season where you pursue what the enemy has stolen from you. And what I know God is doing in the midst of the Triumphant Church in this season is that he's telling us to go after some stuff. He's telling us to pursue some stuff. And you can't wait until everything is like you are supposed, like you want it to be for you to begin to pursue. But we're going to start recovering some stuff that the devil stole from us. I'm going to take back everything that the enemy stole from me. Not only that, I'm going to go after stuff that the enemy didn't even go after. It's the season to pursue. It's the season to go after. You've got to be bold, strong, and courageous in the Lord to go after it. But if God is for us, who can be against us? I can't shake this, but God has been saying to me for some weeks now to tell some husbands in this church, pursue your wife. Pursue your wife. Whatever is in front of you to keep you from pursuing her, pursue her with everything you have. And take back everything that the devil has stolen from you. He'll give you your joy back. He'll give you your peace back. He'll give you your marriage back. He'll give you your children back. He'll give you money back. He'll restore everything that the enemy has taken. It's time to pursue. Somebody say pursue. Come on, somebody say pursue. It's time to recover. Somebody say recover. Tell somebody you can recover. Come on, say you can recover. Yeah, everybody stand to your feet.